The bridge of the UNS Valiant hummed with quiet efficiency as Commander Kyle Harrison reviewed the morning reports. His crew moved around him with practiced ease, checking systems and monitoring the vast emptiness of space. Kyle had been in command for 3 years now, and he knew every sound his ship made, every quirk of its systems. At 38, he was young for a commander, but Earth's rapid expansion into space had created opportunities for those willing to take them. The patrol route today was routine. They were stationed near the outer rim, watching over the newer colonies and making sure pirates stayed away. It was boring work most days, but Kyle preferred boring. Boring meant no one was dying. "Commander, I'm picking up something," Lieutenant Amy Chen called from her station. She was the communications officer, and her job was to listen to the endless chatter of space traffic. "It's a distress signal. Priority Alpha." Kyle sat up straight. Priority Alpha was the highest emergency level in the galaxy. It meant someone was facing complete destruction. "Put it through," he ordered. The main screen flickered and showed an alien unlike any Kyle had seen in person before. The being looked like it was made of crystal, with light bouncing off its surface in rainbow colors. But the fear in its eyes was clear even across species. This was a Valorian, one of the oldest peaceful races in the galaxy. "This is Counselor Thren of Valoria Prime," the alien said, its voice shaking even through the translation device. "We are under attack. The Krathic swarm has returned. They destroyed 7 of our systems in just 3 days. Our defense fleets are gone. The Galactic peacekeepers tried to help, but they were wiped out too. We need help. We need humanity." Kyle felt ice run through his veins. He had read about the Krathic in history files. They were nightmares made real, a species of insect-like creatures that existed only to consume and multiply. They had been locked away in the dead sectors thousands of years ago, and everyone thought they would stay there forever. "Counselor, the United Earth Fleet will help you," Kyle said immediately. "Send us your location. We're coming right now." The Valorian's relief was obvious. "Thank you, Commander." The other species in the galaxy laughed at us for asking humans for help. They said you were too violent, too aggressive, too primitive. But you are our only hope. The Krathic number in the billions. Their ships cover our skies like a plague. The transmission cut off. Kyle turned to his second officer, Lieutenant Graham Scott. "Contact Fleet Admiral Patricia Monroe on Earth. Tell her we need the entire Third Fleet ready to move. And Graham, tell her to activate the Deathworlder protocol." Graham's eyes went wide. The Deathworlder protocol had never been used before. When humanity joined the galaxy 20 years ago, the Galactic Council had made them agree to certain rules about warfare. They couldn't use their most powerful weapons. They couldn't fight too aggressively. They had to be civilized. The Deathworlder protocol threw all those rules away. "Sir, are you sure?" Graham asked. Kyle looked at the star map showing the Krathic advance. 12 systems had gone dark. Billions of people were probably already dead. The galaxy is about to remember why Earth is called a death world, and why we survived it. Within an hour, the call went out across all human space. From the shipyards around Mars to the colonies on the edge of explored space, humanity's military began to wake up. The message was simple and clear. The galaxy had monsters loose, and those monsters had threatened species under human protection. Admiral Patricia Monroe stood in Earth's main military command center, watching as reports flooded in. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen 3 wars. She had spent her whole adult life in the military, rising from a shuttle pilot to the head of Earth's defense forces. "Status report," she ordered. Captain Lisa Morgan stepped forward with her data pad. "Admiral, all sectors are responding. We have the 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets ready to go. That's 412 capital ships, 927 cruisers, and over 3,000 support craft. Mars shipyards are pushing out the new kinetic weapons as fast as they can." Patricia nodded. The Galactic Council had never liked human weapons. While other species used fancy energy shields and plasma beams, humans had stuck with simpler technology. They threw things really, really fast. A piece of metal moving at half the speed of light didn't need to be fancy. It just needed to hit. "What about the special weapons?" Patricia asked quietly. Lisa's face became serious. "The nuclear missiles are being loaded now. The antimatter bombs are ready. And Admiral, the kinetic kill vehicles have been cleared for use." Kinetic kill vehicles were humanity's most feared weapon. They were just big metal rods, but when you threw them fast enough, they could crack planets. The Galactic Council had tried to ban them 3 times. Each time humanity had politely said no. And the ground troops? Patricia continued. General Nathan Cole says the Marines are ready. 50,000 soldiers with powered armor. The Valorians have told us where to land. Patricia studied the battle map. The Krathic had spread across 13 star systems. There were billions of them, maybe trillions. Each one was driven by simple instincts to eat and reproduce. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retreat. They just kept coming until everything was gone. But humans knew how to fight enemies like that. Earth had taught them well. Open a channel to all fleet commanders, Patricia ordered. The screen changed to show dozens of faces. These were humanity's best military leaders. Captain Jake Henderson, Commander Sophie Blake, Admiral Henry Foster, and many others. They were all waiting for orders. You all know what we're facing, Patricia began. The Krathic swarm wants to eat the galaxy. They don't stop. They don't surrender. They just consume everything in their path. The Galactic Council tried to fight them with honor and rules and mercy. She paused to let that sink in. We won't make that mistake. Humanity survived ice ages and volcanoes and asteroids hitting our planet. We survived diseases and predators and wars with each other. We became the top species on Earth not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most stubborn and the most creative. The Krathic are about to learn what that means. She pulled up the attack plan. We hit them in 3 waves. First, we bombard their bases with kinetic weapons. Every shipyard, every breeding ground, everything. Second wave is nuclear strikes on their main fleets. Third wave, we go in close and finish the job, no mercy. No holding back, Captain Jake Henderson spoke up. Admiral, the Galactic Council is going to be angry about this. They'll say we're being too violent. Patricia smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Commander Kyle Harrison already confirmed that the Valorians officially asked for the Deathworlder protocol. That means we fight by our rules now, not the Council's. If they don't like it, they can complain after we save the galaxy. One by one, the commanders agreed to the plan. Patricia watched them sign off, feeling the weight of what they were about to do. Humanity had spent 20 years trying to fit in with galactic society. They had tried to be peaceful and civilized and prove they were more than violent primitives from a dangerous world. That pretense was over now. Start the jump sequence, Patricia commanded. All fleets are cleared to leave immediately. Target is the Zephyr system. The Krathic won't know what hit them. The space around Earth lit up as thousands of ships activated their faster-than-light drives at the same time. It was the biggest military force humanity had ever assembled. Maybe the biggest force any single species had ever assembled. The Deathworlders were going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The UNS Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephyr system, and Commander Kyle Harrison immediately understood why the Valorians had been so terrified. The local star was barely visible through the massive cloud of alien ships that filled the space around it. The Krathic bioships looked like giant insects, their dark hulls covered in what looked like organic armor. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. Get me numbers, Kyle ordered, his voice calm despite what he was seeing. Lieutenant Amy Chen worked frantically at her station. Sir, I'm reading over 10,000 large ships and I can't even count the smaller ones. The Krathic have built breeding colonies on 4 planets and 7 moons. Computer estimates their total population at 40 billion and it's growing fast. Kyle felt his stomach tighten. 40 billion. The number was hard to even imagine. But he had read the briefings on the way here. The Krathic weren't really individuals. They were more like cells in a giant organism, all controlled by simple drives to eat and multiply and spread. What about the Valorian survivors? He asked. They're underground on Valoria Prime, the 4th planet. The Krathic are bombarding the surface. Intelligence says they have maybe 3 days before the planet becomes unlivable. Kyle set his jaw. Not going to happen. Open fleet channel. He waited until the light showed he was connected to all 200 human ships. All vessels, this is Commander Harrison. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. Target all Krathic positions near Valoria Prime. You are weapons free. The human fleet had been holding in a tight formation, but now they spread out in a carefully planned pattern. The Krathic noticed the new arrivals and began turning their swarm toward the human ships. It was like watching a storm cloud change direction. They're coming at us, sir, Graham Scott reported. Lead ships will be in range in 90 seconds. Good, Kyle said coldly. Let them get close. Fire kinetic batteries on my mark. The seconds ticked by. The Krathic ships grew larger on the screen. Kyle could see their weapons charging, preparing to fire the acid rounds that had destroyed the galactic peacekeepers. He waited, then he gave the order. Mark, fire everything. The Valiant shook as its main guns fired. The kinetic weapons were simple compared to the fancy energy guns other species used. They were just pieces of metal accelerated by powerful magnets to incredible speeds. But when something moving that fast hit something else, the results were devastating. The tungsten rounds crossed the distance in seconds, and when they hit the Krathic ships, those ships simply exploded. Each impact released as much energy as a nuclear bomb. The Valiant was firing 60 rounds per minute, and every round killed a Krathic ship. Across the fleet, the same destruction played out. The UNS Defiant, commanded by Captain Jake Henderson, specialized in close combat. Its guns tore through the Krathic formations like a knife through paper. The carrier group Titan Strike, under Commander Sophie Blake, launched hundreds of small fighter craft. The fighters were piloted by humans whose brains had been enhanced with computer implants, giving them reflexes no natural being could match. The Krathic fought back hard. They fired their bioacid weapons that could melt through normal armor. They launched plasma spores that exploded like living bombs. But human ships were built tough. They had layers of armor, sealed compartments, backup systems for their backup systems. Everything was designed to survive in conditions that would kill other species. Incoming fire, Amy warned. Brace for impact. Several acid rounds slammed into the Valiant's outer hull. Alarms screamed as the acid ate through the first layer of armor. But the inner hull held solid. Damage control teams were already sealing the breaches and pumping out the acid before it could spread. Return fire, Kyle ordered, and get me a targeting solution on that breeding moon. I want it destroyed. Lieutenant Marcus Powell grinned at the weapons station. Yes, sir. With pleasure. Half a minute later, 3 kinetic kill vehicles launched from special bays in the Valiant's hull. These weren't normal rounds. They were massive metal rods as big as telephone poles, equipped with small thrusters and guidance computers. They accelerated away from the fleet, building speed as they traveled millions of kilometers through space. When they hit the Krathic breeding moon, the impact was apocalyptic. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the moon's crust cracked. The breeding pools on the surface exploded in chain reactions. Within minutes, the entire moon was breaking apart, its pieces spreading out in a deadly cloud of debris. Breeding colony destroyed, Amy reported, her voice filled with awe. Estimated Krathic casualties, 2 billion. Kyle allowed himself a small, grim smile. Good, target the next colony. We're not stopping until this system is clean. The battle raged for 6 hours straight. Wave after wave of Krathic threw themselves at the human fleet. They fought with the mindless determination of insects protecting their hive. But it wasn't enough. Humanity had learned how to fight on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They understood violence in ways that peaceful species never could. The humans used tactics that made the Galactic Council uncomfortable. They targeted breeding grounds first, cutting off the Krathic's ability to replace losses. They used nuclear weapons without hesitation. They destroyed entire moons if those moons held enemy bases. There was no honor in it, no elegance. Just brutal efficiency. By the time the last Krathic bioship was reduced to floating debris, the Zephyr system looked like a graveyard. Millions of alien corpses drifted in the void. Destroyed moons left trails of rubble. The space around Valoria Prime was so thick with wreckage that it would take decades to clear. Final count, Kyle ordered. Amy checked her screen. All Krathic forces in the system have been eliminated. Total enemy casualties estimated at 15 billion. Our casualties, 0 deaths, 43 wounded, 12 ships with moderate damage. 0 deaths. Kyle let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had faced 15 billion enemies and hadn't lost a single person. It seemed impossible, but the numbers didn't lie. Send a message to Admiral Monroe, Kyle said. Zephyr system is secure. No human fatalities. Requesting permission to move to the next contested system. As the communications officer sent the message, Kyle looked out at the sea of debris. The galaxy had called humans Deathworlders with disgust, as if being from a dangerous planet made them primitive barbarians. They didn't understand that surviving Earth had taught humanity lessons no peaceful species ever learned. Sir, we're getting a request from the Valorian government, Amy said. Counselor Thren wants to meet with you in person. They're sending coordinates for their underground bunker. Kyle nodded. Prepare a diplomatic team. We'll teleport down in 1 hour. He turned to Graham. You have the bridge. Keep the fleet on alert. We've cleared one system. But there are 12 more out there. In the command center back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Monroe reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. The Zephyr system had been liberated in record time. The Krathic had thrown 15 billion warriors at the human fleet and had been completely destroyed. Human casualties were minimal. Send orders to the 5th and 8th fleets, Patricia told Captain Lisa Morgan. They are to move on the Proxima and Centauri systems. Use the same tactics. Total elimination of all Krathic presence. Yes, ma'am, Lisa replied. Admiral, we're also receiving communications from other species. The Naxian Confederacy wants to join our operations. So do the Preeler and Unity and several others. They're offering ships and supplies. Patricia raised an eyebrow. The younger species are rallying to us. Interesting. What about the Galactic Council? Lisa's expression darkened. They're demanding we cease operations immediately. The Theravan representative says our tactics violate the concordance of civilized warfare. They're threatening to bring sanctions against Earth. Patricia snorted. Of course they are. The ancient species sit in their comfortable core worlds and lecture everyone about proper behavior. Meanwhile, the Krathic are eating the Outer Rim alive. Tell the Council we'll be happy to discuss our tactics after we finish saving the galaxy. She turned back to the tactical display showing all 13 Krathic-occupied systems. Red markers indicated enemy strongholds. Blue markers showed human fleet positions. Green markers represented allied forces from the younger species who had chosen to support humanity. How long until we can hit the main hive worlds? Patricia asked. 3 weeks if we want to clear all the smaller systems first, Lisa answered. 2 weeks if we bypass some of them and go straight for the primary targets. We clear everything, Patricia decided. I want every Krathic breeding ground destroyed. Every bioship turned to scrap. Every warrior dead. We're not leaving any survivors to rebuild and start this nightmare again. Lisa hesitated. Admiral, that's genocide. If we kill every single Krathic, the Council will never forgive us. Patricia met her officer's eyes steadily. Captain Morgan, do you know why Earth is classified as a death world? Because of the dangerous conditions, ma'am. Partly, Patricia agreed. But also because Earth taught humanity a hard truth. Sometimes to survive, you have to be willing to do terrible things. The Krathic aren't a civilization. They're a force of nature like a disease or a natural disaster. You don't negotiate with a plague. You eradicate it. Commander Kyle Harrison and his diplomatic team materialized inside the underground bunker beneath Valoria Prime's surface. The teleportation technology was something the Valorians had shared with humanity in exchange for protection. It was one of many advanced technologies the older species had given to Earth over the past 20 years. The bunker was surprisingly beautiful, despite being built for survival. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light, and thousands of Valorian refugees filled the chambers. As Kyle and his team walked through the corridors, the aliens stopped what they were doing and stared. Some pressed their hands to their chests in what Kyle's briefing notes said was a sign of deep respect. Counselor Thren waited in the central chamber, surrounded by other Valorian leaders. The elderly alien's crystalline body seemed dimmer than before, worn down by the stress of watching his people die. But his eyes brightened when he saw Kyle approach. Commander Harrison, Thren said through the translator device, you have saved our world. The debt we owe humanity cannot be measured in any way we know. Kyle nodded respectfully. We were honored to help, Counselor. No species should face extinction from the Krathic. Yet the other species of the Galactic Council did nothing. Another Valorian spoke up bitterly. This was Counselor Mira, younger than Thren, but just as devastated by recent events. The Arxian peacekeepers sent 3 fleets. All were destroyed in hours. The Soltari offered prayers. The Mechlin said our civilization was too primitive to deserve protection. And the Theravan, the species that claims to be the most advanced in the galaxy, said defending us would be inefficient. Kyle exchanged glances with Lieutenant Amy Chen, who had accompanied him on this diplomatic mission. The politics of the Galactic Council had always frustrated humanity. The Council claimed to represent unity and cooperation, but in practice it was more like a hierarchy where the oldest civilizations looked down on everyone else. Counselor Thren, Kyle said carefully, may I ask why you chose to contact humanity specifically? We're one of the newest members of the Council. Surely there were more established species you could have called. Thren's crystalline features seemed to brighten slightly. Commander, may I show you something? It will help you understand. The elderly Valorian led them to a chamber filled with holographic displays. With a gesture, Thren activated one showing a three-dimensional model of the entire galaxy. Thousands of stars glittered in the projection. This is the galaxy as it exists today, Thren explained. 17,000 sentient species, most living in what we call the habitable ring. These are regions of space where conditions are perfect for life as the Council defines it. Another gesture made certain star systems glow red. These are death worlds, planets where conditions are so hostile that civilized species cannot evolve naturally. High gravity, extreme temperatures, aggressive predators, deadly diseases. The Council catalogs them as curiosities, places to avoid. Thren zoomed in on one particular red dot. The Sol system, Earth. When humanity first made contact 20 years ago, the Council was shocked. Not that you had achieved spaceflight, but that you had survived at all. Your planet should have killed you in your cradle. The radiation exposure alone should have prevented complex life from evolving. The predators, the diseases, the unstable geology. By all our statistical models, humanity should not exist. Lieutenant Amy Chen spoke up. With respect, Counselor, we've heard this before. The Council has never hidden its surprise that humans reach the stars. True, Thren agreed. But do you know why the Council truly fears you? Kyle felt a chill run down his spine. Fears us? Thren activated another display. This one showed military records. Battles fought by human forces over the past 2 decades. In 20 years of galactic citizenship, humanity has participated in 17 military operations. Pirate suppression, border disputes, peacekeeping missions, minor conflicts by galactic standards. The hologram zoomed in on statistics. In every single engagement, humanity achieved its objectives. In every single engagement, human casualties were minimal. In every single engagement, your enemies suffered total defeat. Commander Harrison, do you know what your military success rate is? Kyle shook his head slowly. 100%, Thren said quietly. No other species in recorded galactic history has ever achieved a perfect military record. Not the ancient Theravans. Not the warrior Crexans. Not even the machine intelligences of the Nexus Collective. Only humanity. Counselor Mira stepped forward. The Council species like to believe they are evolved beyond war. They have advanced energy shields, sophisticated artificial intelligence faster than light travel that is far superior to your technology. But they have forgotten something that you never did. They forgot how to fight for survival. Thren pulled up another image, this one showing the recent battle for the Zephyr system. 40 billion Krathic. The Arxian peacekeepers said it would take a combined fleet of 50 nations 5 years to eliminate the swarm, with acceptable losses. You did it in 6 hours with 0 deaths. Do you understand what that means? Kyle felt the weight of the Valorian's words. You're saying humanity is better at warfare than species with technology centuries ahead of ours. Not better, Thren corrected. Different. The civilized species of the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds. They developed philosophy, art, advanced science. War became a theoretical exercise, something to be managed by rules and conventions. But you, Commander Harrison, you evolved in a place where every day was a battle for existence. You learned to fight not with honor or elegance, but with efficiency and determination. Counselor Mira's voice took on an edge. That is why we called you when the Krathic came. Not because we admired you. Honestly, most Valorians find human culture disturbing. You eat the flesh of other animals. You compete instead of cooperate. You celebrate individual achievement over collective harmony. You are everything the Council teaches us not to be. But, Thren interjected softly, when monsters from the dark came to devour us, when our enlightened neighbors abandoned us, when our sophisticated defenses crumbled, we needed monsters of our own to fight back. We needed Deathworlders. The chamber fell silent. Kyle looked around at his diplomatic team and saw his own troubled thoughts reflected in their faces. Humanity had spent 20 years trying to fit into galactic society, trying to be civilized, trying to prove they were more than violent primitives from a dangerous world. There are 12 more systems still under Krathic control, Kyle said finally. Billions more people in danger. Will the Council support our continued operations? Thren's laugh was bitter. The Council is currently in emergency session, debating whether to punish humanity for violating the concordance of civilized warfare. The Theravan representative is calling for your species to be stripped of military privileges. They say your tactics are barbaric and excessive. Excessive, Kyle repeated flatly. We saved 15 billion Valorians and they call us excessive. They are afraid, Mira said bluntly. For thousands of years, the old species have controlled the galaxy through technology and influence. They made the rules and everyone else followed them. But you don't follow their rules. You can't be controlled through shame or social pressure. And worst of all, you're effective in ways they can never be. Thren nodded slowly. The council species have powerful weapons, but they're afraid to use them. They have strong militaries, but they fight with one hand tied behind their backs. They value the appearance of civilization over actual survival. You don't have that weakness. Kyle thought about the kinetic kill vehicles, the nuclear weapons, the willingness to destroy entire moons to eliminate breeding grounds. The council was right to call human tactics brutal. They were brutal. Earth had taught humanity that survival sometimes required terrible choices. So what happens now? Amy Chen asked. If the council tries to stop us, what do we do? You keep fighting, Thren said firmly. The Valorians stand with humanity. We will provide you with everything we have. Our technology, our resources, our star charts. We will also use our influence to rally the younger species of the council to your cause. The ancient civilizations may look down on you, but there are many like us who remember what it means to struggle for survival. Mira pulled up a display showing dozens of star systems. These are the species that have contacted us in the past day. The Naxians, the Prelorans, the Keltor Union, the Braxis clans. All of them are offering to support humanity's campaign against the Krathic. The younger species are tired of being ignored by the council. Kyle studied the display with growing understanding. This was bigger than just the Krathic. This was about power dynamics in the galaxy, about who got to make decisions and who had to follow them. By defying the council and succeeding, humanity was challenging thousands of years of established order. We're going to make a lot of enemies, Kyle said quietly. You already have enemies, Thren replied. The difference is that now you also have allies. Species who are tired of the council's indifference. Species who want protectors that will actually protect them, not debate the proper protocols while they die. As Kyle and his team prepared to return to the Valiant, Thren placed a crystalline hand on the commander's shoulder. The touch was light, almost fragile, but the gesture carried weight. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Zephyr System, and Admiral Patricia Monroe stood on the bridge of the UNS Olympus, humanity's newest and largest warship. The tactical display showed the results of their campaign, and she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 11 of the 13 Krathic-occupied systems had been retaken. Each battle had been brutal, but humanity's combination of overwhelming firepower and ruthless efficiency had proven unstoppable. Now they faced the final target. The Krathic Primary Hive System, a massive collection of 3 planets and 14 moons that served as the swarm's central breeding ground. Intelligence reports estimated the enemy forces at over 500 billion Krathic warriors and 3 million bioships. It was the largest concentration of hostile forces humanity had ever faced. All fleet elements report ready, Admiral, Captain Lisa Morgan announced. We have 600 combat vessels in position. The Valorian Alliance has contributed another 200 ships. We also have support from the Naxian Confederacy, the Preloran Unity, and the Krexan warrior clans. Patricia nodded. Word of humanity's victories had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The younger species, those who had suffered under the Council's indifference, had rallied to the human banner. Even some of the warrior cultures, who had initially dismissed humanity as primitive, now sought to fight alongside the Deathworlders. It was the largest combined fleet in recent galactic history. The Galactic Council had protested loudly, of course. The Theravan had threatened sanctions. The Meklon had called humanity's tactics genocidal. The Arxian peacekeepers had demanded that humanity stand down and let the Council handle the situation. But none of them had offered any real help, and their words meant nothing to the billions of refugees who had been saved by human intervention. Status of the special weapons? Patricia asked. Lisa's expression grew somber. All systems are ready. The antimatter warheads, the kinetic kill vehicles, and the Nova device. Patricia felt the weight of that weapon pressing down on her. It was humanity's ultimate creation, a weapon designed to destabilize a star's fusion reactions and cause it to go supernova. The technology was theoretical until 3 years ago, when human scientists had finally made it work. The Galactic Council didn't even know it existed. If they did, they would probably try to forcibly disarm humanity. Let's hope we don't need it, Patricia said quietly. But if the Krathic can't be stopped by conventional means, I won't hesitate to use it. Incoming transmission from the council chambers, a communications officer interrupted. It's the Theravan Prime Representative. She's demanding to speak with you immediately. Patricia sighed. She had been expecting this. Put her through. The holographic display shimmered and showed a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix. Representative Zinthar, the prime voice of the Theravan people, looked at Patricia with barely concealed contempt. The Theravans were an ancient species that had once ruled half the galaxy, before voluntarily reducing their territory and helping form the Council. They considered themselves the epitome of civilization. Admiral Monroe, the Council has reviewed your military operations against the Krathic swarm, Zinthar said, her voice cold and formal. While we acknowledge certain successes, we cannot condone your continued escalation of force. The destruction you have caused goes against every principle of the concordance of civilized warfare. Patricia kept her voice level and professional. Representative Zinthar, with respect, the concordance was written for wars between civilized species. The Krathic are not a civilization. They're a plague. They don't negotiate, they don't surrender, and they don't show mercy to their victims. Nevertheless, Zinthar continued, the Council has voted to suspend humanity's military operations pending a full review. You are ordered to withdraw your forces immediately and allow a Council peacekeeping force to address the remaining Krathic presence. Patricia felt anger rising, but controlled it carefully. Representative, the Council peacekeeping forces failed 3 weeks ago. They failed when the Valorians were being slaughtered. They failed when 12 systems fell to the swarm. They failed because they tried to fight with honor and rules while the Krathic were eating entire planets. We fight with honor because we are civilized, Zinthar shot back. We do not resort to planet-destroying weapons. We do not commit genocide against entire species, no matter how hostile. Your tactics may be effective, Admiral, but they are not civilized. Then perhaps civilization isn't enough, Patricia replied quietly. Perhaps sometimes you need to remember that survival comes first and philosophy comes second. Zinthar's energy form pulsed with anger. You are proving exactly what the Council feared when humanity joined the galactic community. You are violent, destructive Deathworlders who solve every problem with overwhelming force. You have no place among civilized species. We saved the Valorians, Patricia interrupted. We liberated 11 systems. We did what the Council could not or would not do. Yes, we are Deathworlders. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we survived by becoming the most dangerous predators on our planet. If that makes us monsters in your eyes, Representative Zinthar, then so be it. But we're the monsters who get results. The Council's decision stands, Zinthar declared coldly. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. Patricia reached forward and cut the transmission. Around the bridge, her crew stared at her in shock. No one simply hung up on a Theravan Prime representative. It was considered one of the worst diplomatic insults possible. Admiral, Lisa said carefully, you just committed political suicide. The Council will never forgive that. Perhaps, Patricia agreed. But there are 500 billion Krathic in that system. If we don't eliminate them now, they'll rebuild and spread again. How many species will die next time while the Council debates the proper rules of engagement? She turned to the communication station. Open a channel to all fleet commanders. Within seconds, the faces of humanity's military leadership appeared on the display. Captain Jake Henderson, Commander Sophie Blake, Admiral Henry Foster, and dozens more. Behind them, Patricia could see the faces of alien commanders from the species who had joined the human cause. All ships, Patricia began. You've all heard the Council's order to withdraw. I want to be clear about something. I am not ordering anyone to disobey the Council. If you wish to pull out, you may do so without any judgment from me, but I want you to understand what's at stake. She paused, choosing her words carefully. If we leave now, the Krathic will rebuild. They'll spread again, and next time it might be our worlds they attack, our families they consume, our children who die screaming while the Council debates whether it's appropriate to defend them. Patricia pulled up images of the devastation the Krathic had caused. Worlds stripped bare of life, cities reduced to organic slime, billions of corpses floating in space. Earth was a death world. It threw everything at us. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds where survival was easy. But we didn't have that luxury. We learned to be adaptable, resourceful, and when necessary, absolutely ruthless. The galaxy sees that as a character flaw. I see it as our greatest strength. Captain Jake Henderson spoke first. The Defiant stands with you, Admiral. Let's finish this fight. One by one, every human commander pledged their support. Then, to Patricia's surprise, the alien contingents did the same. The Valorian fleet commander pressed his hand to his chest in respect. The Naxian battle leader raised her weapon in salute. Even the Krexan war chief, whose species prided itself on following ancient codes of honor, refused to withdraw. It seems, the Krexan war chief rumbled, his leonine features splitting in a fierce grin, that you Deathworlders have reminded us what it means to fight for survival. The Krexan honor codes say we must protect the weak and destroy evil. The Council has forgotten this. But we remember. The Krexan will stand beside humanity. Patricia felt emotion welling up but pushed it aside. There would be time for reflection later. Right now they had a war to finish. All ships move to attack positions, she ordered. Target all Krathic breeding worlds simultaneously. I want the Nova device prepared but held in reserve. We're going to give the swarm one chance to retreat. If they refuse, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. The combined fleet moved forward as one massive formation. 800 warships representing dozens of species united under a single purpose. As they crossed into the Krathic system, the swarm responded exactly as predicted. They threw everything they had at the invaders. The battle that followed was the most intense fighting humanity had ever experienced. The space around the Krathic worlds became a storm of fire and death. Bioships exploded by the thousands, their organic hulls no match for kinetic weapons. But for every ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The Krathic were breeding faster than they could be killed. Human vessels were torn apart by concentrated acid fire. The UNS Defiant lost its entire port side to a plasma storm but kept fighting. The Valorian ships used their advanced energy weapons to create barriers, protecting damaged vessels as they retreated. The Naxians deployed massive drone swarms. The Nova device launched from the UNS Olympus with a flash of light. It was a sleek missile carrying enough exotic matter to trigger a chain reaction in the star's core. The weapon would take 3 hours to reach its target, and another 2 hours for the reaction to destabilize the star enough to cause it to explode. That gave them 5 hours total to clear the blast radius. All ships, Patricia broadcast across every channel, initiate retreat sequence immediately. We have 5 hours to clear the danger zone. Any ship unable to achieve faster than light travel will be towed. No one gets left behind. As the fleet began its withdrawal, the Krathic seemed to sense that something was wrong. Their attacks intensified dramatically, throwing wave after wave of bioships at the retreating vessels in a desperate attempt to prevent their escape. It was as if the hive mind understood that this was their last chance to stop the humans. Commander Kyle Harrison found the Valiant at the rear guard again, protecting damaged ships as they limped toward the jump point. The carrier Titan Strike had lost its main engines and was being towed by 2 cruisers. The Valorian flagship had suffered catastrophic damage and could barely move. Dozens of other ships were in similar condition, crawling through space while the Krathic swarmed after them. All power to rear shields, Kyle ordered as another massive volley of acid rounds slammed into his ship. The impacts made the entire vessel shake. Engineering, I need those engines at 120% capacity. Sir, that will burn out the reactor core, Graham Scott warned, his face pale with exhaustion. They had been fighting for 16 hours straight without rest. Then we burn it out after everyone else is safe, Kyle replied firmly. How many ships still need our protection? Lieutenant Amy Chen checked her display. 32 ships, sir. 20 human vessels and 12 allied ships. The slowest one will reach the jump point in 4 hours and 40 minutes. Kyle looked at the countdown timer. They would make it, but barely. Tell those ships to push their engines as hard as they can. We'll cover them all the way. The Valiant's guns never stopped firing. The crew worked like a machine, each person knowing their job perfectly. Damage control teams sealed breaches as fast as they appeared. Medical teams treated the wounded in makeshift stations throughout the ship. The weapons crews loaded and fired until their hands bled and their muscles screamed. In one section of the ship, a young ensign named Danny Cooper manned a secondary gun battery. He had been at his post for 18 hours and his hands were shaking from exhaustion. When a Krathic plasma round punched through the hull near his station, the explosive decompression threw him against the wall, but he dragged himself back to his controls and kept firing. That was the human way. You kept fighting until the job was done or you couldn't fight anymore. Back on the Olympus, Admiral Patricia Monroe watched the countdown with mounting tension. The Nova device had reached the star and was beginning its work. The star's fusion reactions were becoming unstable. building toward an explosive release that would consume the entire system. Fleet status, she demanded. Captain Lisa Morgan worked her console frantically. Most ships have cleared the danger zone. We have 41 vessels still inside the blast radius. Estimated time to safety for the last ship, 4 hours and 35 minutes. Patricia did the math in her head. The star would go critical in exactly 5 hours. They would make it, but there was no margin for error. If even one ship had a mechanical failure, if the Galactic managed to disable a vessel, people would die. Send a message to all ships still in the danger zone, Patricia ordered. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to keep pushing. She turned to her tactical officer. Deploy the reserve squadrons. I want every available ship providing cover for the retreat. And get me Commander Kyle Harrison on a direct channel. A moment later, Kyle's face appeared on her screen. He looked exhausted with blood on his uniform and burns on his face, but his eyes were still sharp and determined. Commander Harrison, Patricia said, you've been holding the rear guard for 16 hours. Your ship has taken massive damage. I'm ordering you to fall back and let fresh ships take over. Kyle shook his head. With respect, Admiral, the Valiant stays until every ship is safe. That's what we do. That's what humans do. Patricia felt pride and fear war in her chest. Pride at the courage of her people. Fear that she was about to lose good officers. Very well, Commander. But the moment that last ship clears the jump point, you get your people out of there. That's an order. Understood, Admiral, Kyle replied. Then he smiled grimly. Besides, I want to see that star blow. It's going to be quite a show. The next 4 hours were the longest of Patricia's life. She watched the tactical display as ship after ship cleared the danger zone. The Galactic continued their relentless pursuit, but they were falling behind. The human ships, even damaged ones, were faster than the bioships in straight-line speed. 3 hours passed. Then 4. With 30 minutes left before the star went critical, only 5 ships remained in the danger zone. 4 cruisers and the Valiant. Come on, Patricia whispered, watching the display. Come on. One by one, the cruisers reached the jump point and vanished into faster-than-light travel. That left only the Valiant, still firing at the pursuing Galactic swarm even as it raced for safety. Valiant is approaching the jump point, Lisa reported. 10 minutes to safety. Star will go critical in 12 minutes. Patricia held her breath. It was going to be close, dangerously close. On the Valiant's bridge, Kyle watched the jump point grow closer on his screen. Behind them, thousands of Galactic bioships gave chase, their weapons still firing. The Valiant's rear shields were almost gone and they had lost half their weapons, but they were going to make it. Jump point in 60 seconds, Amy announced.
All systems ready for faster-than-light transition. Kyle allowed himself to relax slightly.
They had done it. Every ship was safe. Every person accounted for. It was going to be close, but they were going to make it. Then, 30 seconds from the jump point, disaster struck. A lucky shot from a Galactic heavy cruiser hit the Valiant's main reactor. Alarms screamed as the power systems began to fail. We've lost main power, Graham shouted over the noise. Faster-than-light drive is offline. Emergency power only. Kyle felt ice in his stomach. Without faster-than-light capability, they couldn't escape the blast. How long to repair? 15 minutes minimum, the engineering officer reported. The damage is extensive. They had 8 minutes before the star exploded. It wasn't enough time. Kyle opened the fleet channel. All ships, this is Commander Kyle Harrison. The Valiant has lost faster-than-light capability. We cannot escape the blast zone. Proceed with mission objectives. Do not attempt rescue. That's an order. Patricia's voice came back immediately. Negative, Commander. We're sending ships back for you. Admiral, you can't risk more lives, Kyle argued. We knew the risks when we took this mission. Commander Harrison, I said no one gets left behind, and I meant it, Patricia replied firmly. The Defiant and the Wanderer are already on their way. They'll tow you out. You just need to hold on for 5 more minutes. Kyle looked at his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, and scared, but every single one of them was still at their post. That was the human way. You didn't give up. You didn't surrender. You fought until you won or you died trying. All hands, Kyle announced over the ship's internal speakers. We have incoming rescue. Hold your positions. Keep those guns firing. We're getting out of here. The next 5 minutes felt like hours. The Galactic, sensing wounded prey, threw everything they had at the Valiant. The ship shuddered under continuous impacts. Sections of hull were blown away. Fires broke out in multiple compartments, but the crew kept fighting. Then, like angels from heaven, the Defiant and the Wanderer appeared. Both ships immediately engaged the Krathic pursuers while deploying tow cables to the Valiant. Tow lines attached, Captain Jake Henderson reported from the Defiant. Engaging emergency tow. This is going to be rough. The moment the cables went taut, the Valiant lurched forward with bone-jarring force. The acceleration was brutal, far beyond what the inertial dampeners could compensate for. People were thrown against walls and equipment. But they were moving, being dragged toward the jump point at maximum speed. "Star going critical," Amy called out. "Nova event in 60 seconds. 40 seconds to jump point," Graham added. Kyle gripped his chair as the ship was hauled through space. The Krathic were still firing, still chasing, but they were falling behind. The human ships were going to make it. 20 seconds to jump point, Graham announced. Kyle watched the countdown. The star was seconds away from exploding. They were seconds away from safety. It was going to be incredibly close. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Jump point reached. Initiating faster-than-light transition. The universe twisted around them as all three ships jumped to faster-than-light travel. At that exact moment, behind them, the Krathic home star reached critical mass and exploded. The shockwave expanded at nearly the speed of light, vaporizing everything in its path. Planets, moons, bioships, breeding colonies, 500 billion Krathic warriors. All of it was consumed in an instant by the stellar fury that humans had unleashed. The fleet watched from a safe distance as the star system was destroyed.